Well, hi, everyone. This is Joffrey Swait, Chief Academic Advisor at Kepler. And one of the things I head up is Kepler Life. It is our effort to build community outside the classroom, not to be institutionalized, but rather to have clubs, activities, conversation together so that as we are educating and being educated, this is something that can happen in communion, in community, even online. So today I have a special guest, Tricia Yeager from Gutenberg College, which is not online. It's in a charming little building in Eugene, Oregon. Tricia, welcome.
Hello.
So today I want to talk to you guys about how Gutenberg College does student life. Maybe you can give us a basic introduction, because there is Gutenberg is unique. We'll put it that way.
Yes.
So I'd love to just have a basic introduction to what academic life looks like at Gutenberg, and then how that unfolds in student life and corporate life.
Yeah, well, academic life at Gutenberg is incredibly rich, and as you said, really unique.
Gutenberg College is a place where students have the freedom to explore any and all questions and gain the skills to answer them, confident that the biblical view can hold its own in the marketplace of ideas. Life at Gutenberg takes courage and responsibility. Students live in a close community and share classes together for 4 years. They must learn to trust, to be vulnerable, to be humble, and to care for others. It's an environment designed to cultivate the whole person, where life and learning fit seamlessly together. Contact us today.
We do a lot of reading and discussion. So all of our classes are discussion based. And that allows us to not be in a position where we're kind of inputting data, which is generally what people end up doing in college. We end up talking a lot. I think I figured it out while I was a student, and I was spending the equivalent of the high side of a part-time job in discussion time. Just hours and hours every week talking with people. And that merged very, very much into the personal life and the residential life of the school, because the conversations that start in the classroom don't stop there. There's some that we keep there for the peace of the community, but there's many that bleed out because you're talking about this, you're not inputting data, you're learning how to live it.
Now, before we move more specifically into student life and those conversations outside the classroom, I find it fascinating that you quantified the conversational experience, and so then I want to ask, well, it's the equivalent of a part-time job. Is it worth it? Like, why don't I just go to a state university and check the boxes? Why am I investing all that time in talking?
Yeah. You don't learn much when someone's talking at you. You're in a position where, well, you can learn if someone's talking at you, if you decide to. But when you have someone talking with you, you end up having to invest, because if you don't learn anything at all, you have nothing to say in return. So you can't have a conversation. And then if someone is talking at you, they may give you a lot of good information, but they don't always know what you need. And if they're talking with you, you can stop them as soon as you don't understand something and get it clarified.
And I find that it doesn't, it's more difficult for whatever the thing is that you're talking about to become part of yourself, right? You forget it as the years go by, but you don't forget it if you had those enriching conversations, if you took possession of it yourself. As a language teacher, I find that I run into a lot of people, adults. I majored in Spanish, but I don't speak any.
They don't speak
right,
it, yeah.
And it's because of how they approached that learning process.
Definitely something I've experienced, like with my own language study. If you're not speaking it, you never speak it, and I think that ties definitely over into everything else. If you don't bring it into your conversations, it stays in a little box.
Right. Well, stays in a little box, or it bleeds out. You mentioned bleeding out. So what's the context at Gutenberg in which that happens? I mean, I'm not walking into a lecture hall with 800
Right.
people in it. But you made it sound like there's more than just, oh, we're out in the hallway right now.
Well, some of the conversations take place as part of structured class time. And they come in different levels. There's some things that just have to be taught lecture style. There's no other way to communicate the information. So some things happen inside the classroom, like we'll have a reading that will be given to us, and we'll do the reading in preparation for the class, and then come in and talk about it with each other. So like the juniors this year got together and they were reading the Iliad, and they got to talk about the Iliad and like glory in Greece and the nature of man according to Homer and all of that good stuff. But when you start talking about the nature of man according to Homer, you start pulling in other things, and you start seeing similarities between like the Greek epics. Well, the Greeks had epics. Do we have epics? And our Marvel movies are epics. And of course, some people say yes, and some people say no. And next thing you know, around the dinner table, you're hashing out, do we have an Achilles equivalent or not?
Well, hold on. I actually have to interrupt because you just casually mentioned around the dinner table.
Yes, we eat together. We're required to eat together.
Oh, whether you like it or not. So is every student part of the residence program?
No, not every student is part of the residence program. We encourage freshmen to be part of the residence program because it's such a good program. It's co-ed. There's men and women living in the same house in different halls. And they live together in, are you familiar at all with L'Abri?
Yes.
So Gutenberg, before it was Gutenberg, when it was McKinsey Study Center, it was modeled after a L'Abri.
You know, that explains a lot. How about that? Okay.
Yeah. So it's a community of people. We have house managers kind of overseeing everything, but it's a group of young people. They handle all the chores, are distributed between them. We have one of our house managers is the cook, and we eat together and take care of the house together and live a lot of life together during that period of time.
Well, Gil Greco was one of our teachers, and I know that he's associated with Gutenberg. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should have him teach a cooking class. Yeah.
He makes a very good dinner.
Okay. How about that? All right. Well, I definitely have to visit him then.
Oh yeah.
Well, let me ask you about, so, you know, at Kepler, we have Kepler Life and the Kepler Quad, which is our online, just hanging out space. And we try to encourage conversation and activities as much as possible. We have a bunch of clubs. So besides, you know, so you formalized dinner together, right? You know, how is student life formalized beyond the classroom?
Everything is spontaneous.
Okay.
We are not terribly good at planning. The off-campus students sometimes would get on to us because we would decide to do things really quick, and they would protest that they didn't have enough time. They didn't know that it was happening. Did tend to be what's spontaneous. Whether it's deciding at ridiculous hours of the night that we go out and get ice cream, because finals are kicking our butts.
Okay. But that's the sort of thing you guys do. You just up and decide to go get ice cream.
Yeah. When you're living in the same house with a whole bunch of people, that's what you get to do.
So let's make sure the rubber hits the road here.
Yeah.
Why does going out for ice cream, why is that a helpful part of the educational experience?
I think it's something that hasn't been intuited until recently. Because until recently, we had to interact with people a lot more, and we had to work through relationships a lot more. And you and I right now, we have this incredible opportunity to be in two different states and have a conversation with each other, which is awesome. And Kepler has the opportunity to reach people all over the world because we can meet with each other online. But what we end up being in danger with, losing online, which you guys through like I think you called it the quad. You're trying to maintain some of that in-person stuff.
Right.
what you lose online is the personal. If someone insults me in a Reddit thread, I can block them. I can just cut them out of my life with no more difficulty than clicking a button. And they're gone. And they can never speak to me ever again. When I live in the same house with them, I can't do that. And that means that I have to start taking them seriously. And they can't just be another person with a weird opinion, because they're also like the best person on my kitchen cleanup crew. Or, there's somebody, like, you get to know people, you get to know the whole person. You get to know what they look like when they're staggering down the hallway, having just woken up. You get to know what it's like to work beside them and realize that they're a really hard worker. And then they bring something to the table during conversation that normally you would just dismiss. But because you know them personally, it gives them the inroad to be able to speak to you and for you to take them seriously.
Yeah. I mean, which basically sounds like human relations. I mean, it's the person at your church who annoys you, your own spouse, whatever it is. And really, like, you're putting your finger on I think the scourge of modern Enlightenment education. As combined with the technology that we have. But even in person, most college campuses, right? That's what cancellation is all about. I don't have to put up with you. You're on the wrong side of our Marvel movies, epics or not, and so you're gone from my life forever. And even in academic pursuit, that's how inquiry, in very grieved quotation marks, that's what inquiry looks like. There is no more inquiry. There's just, oh, you're on the wrong side of history. Be gone with you.
Yeah, and when you give each of us the opportunity to actually sit down and get to know the person and listen to them, you may still come out disagreeing with them, but you can do so in a way that you don't lose their humanity.
Well, as a former student, I would love to hear maybe a specific or concrete way that the chance to live your educational life this way, how that impacted you, how that changed you.
Well, I'm a completely different person now than I would have been, and if I had not been to Gutenberg. And interestingly, I think the example that I can think of immediately is not another student. It's actually Charlie. So if you're
now, can you explain to us who Charlie is? Oh, you're sorry.
Yeah. Charlie was supposed to be with me today. He is our Dean of Academics. His name is Charlie Dewberry. He's one of the founding members of the school. He is awesome. He is a extraordinary teacher, a wonderful human being, very, very wise man. And he's a stream ecologist by trade. And I came out of the red-blooded heartland of America, where we do not truck with such things as environmentalism. So I was a little appalled to be stuck in the same school as a ecologist. And it took me a while. It was rough. I had to read Aldo Leopold's Sand County Almanac. I had to read E.F. Schumacher, Small is Beautiful, and Schumacher and Leopold are not red-blooded American heartland exactly. So I was sort of immediately a little allergic to it. But I had to discuss it. I had to be there, and I had to interact with someone that I knew personally, who I knew cared about me and who I respected. And that was some of the first time that I'd had an idea that I wasn't really into being espoused by someone who I had interacted with in that way. And it made me step back and made me rethink and made me see more layers to that conversation than I had understood were really there.
So Charlie is the author of Saving Science, a critique of science and its role in salmon recovery. So I just love that title, right? Because it's like, it's big and it's philosophical, and then this takes a sudden turn into something very specific and niche, but obviously applying God's word. And so I know that Gutenberg has a big focus on worldview and applying worldview. So I love that
Mhm.
part of the approach, because there are a lot of Christian institutions that they think about worldview, but basically what they think about is, well, we're going to use apologetics to make your weapons as sharp as possible.
Mhm.
But there's what you often see is fruit that lacks wisdom, and so you
Mhm.
guys are trying very hard to, through corporate life, to
Mhm.
include wisdom in the quiver.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It is very easy to build up the chops to cut right and left with your apologetics, and the danger of that is in the process you lose the chance to reach people, and
Hmm.
you stop seeing them as human beings with souls who are in desperate need of salvation, whether or just in desperate. All of us are in desperate need of God, um, and if you just see apologetics as a weapon with which to destroy other people who are also in desperate need of God, uh, you're not going to get much of anywhere. So I see apologetics for me coming out of Gutenberg, and I would say this is me as an alum, uh, has become more of a bastion and a foundation for me to stand upon,
Hmm.
to secure my own self and my own understanding, and it is a thing that I offer to other people, as also being like, this is a good foundation, and I believe these are things that you can trust to put your feet on in the midst of a world that's very unstable. But I would not, at this point in my life at least, try to use them to attack anyone with.
Yeah. Well, and I just love the idea. Right. Exactly. Well, and I love the idea that what one's education, which firms you up, it shores up your foundations, because it is who you are.
Mhm.
That would be something that you all would purposely, and that you would want to be, something that is driven by others, right? That's
Mhm.
participative, that's communal. So I really appreciate the insight that you've helped give me, into that process. So Tricia, thank you so much for being here.
Sure thing. Thank you.